Welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, where we learn how to develop a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Here's our host, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, stewardship coach, and my husband, the man they call Mr. Fortified, Jason Davis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What is going on, everybody? My name is Jason Davis, a.k.a. Mr. Fortified. Welcome to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you every week, I'm excited, but there's a little something extra in the tank because our guest tonight, I can honestly say, is royalty. It's been a long time coming because she stays busy. And you'll find out why as we get into this interview. But before I bring her on, let me introduce her to you. Paula G Voice, also known as Lady Wisdom, is a radio, TV personality, voiceover talent, author, and contributor to Flourish Digital Magazine. I told you she is busy. Her voice has been described as a voice of comfort, care, and intent with a sound that suggests a smooth jazz feel. Paula hosted the Paula G Show on Survival Radio Network from 2014 to 2020. She has an impressive international roster of individuals interviewed that includes the 100 Black Men of London, actor Wendell Pierce, Dr. Dennis Kimbro, Alfred A, Edmond Jr, Black Enterprise Magazine, and so many more. She was featured in the December 2020 edition of Communique magazine. She is also the recipient of the 22nd annual GAB Awards, Gathering of Africa's Best Media category. Folks, there's so many things that I could go on and on about, and we'll unpack it in the interview. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, Paula G.
Good evening, my brother. How are you this evening?
I am good. It's good to be in the company of Lady Wisdom.
Oh, thank you. I am so excited. I feel like a full circle moment. This is like deja vu.
It is. It really is.
It's like deja vu. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for having me. I've been excited about this interview and excited about the opportunity to have a conversation with you. And I just want to say before we go any further, I am so proud of you, of your journey from beginning to where you are now. I'm just so proud of everything that you are doing. So no pun intended, but continue to embrace your journey.
You see, folks, you see how she does it it's flawless without even trying. But no, for our listeners, I really appreciate that coming from Paula G because, Paul, I don't even know if you remember all these conversations. Paula kind of took me under her wing when I first came to the Positive Power 21 family. And Paula, you gave me so much advice and wisdom and different things on the back end on what it takes to have a good show, a successful show, to serve your audience and your listeners. And I learned a lot from you. So I do thank you for that. And Paula, it's fitting that this is episode 90 with you, 10 away from a milestone. So I have no doubt that it's not by coincidence, it's just providence.
Yes. yes. And, it's since I've been on, and, I keep using the word journey because that's exactly what it's been. It has been a journey. But just since I've been on this journey, God has just opened so many doors and, has made provision for both of us to use what he has, put in us to help others and bless others and inspire others to move in their respective directions of what it is he has called them to do. So it's been wonderful.
Amen to that. And Paul, I think you provided a window into our episode journey can you talk about, especially, when people read your bio, radio, TV personality, voiceover talent, author, can you give us a journey about how God has just mapped out that journey for you? So first, maybe let's start on the radio TV side, because Paula, a lot of people out there, we hear little kids or even teenagers, I want to be on TV, but you're actually living it. You have lived it and you are living it. So just talk about how you even started on the radio TV side.
So on the radio, it started on the radio side. It was, oh my gosh, getting close to 10 years now, I suppose, almost 10 years ago. I was at an event here in Atlanta with an organization that I volunteered with. It was a youth organization, and it was their annual fundraiser. And there was a gentleman there that was broadcasting live. This is back in the early days when, podcasts were still starting. And he was broadcasting live, and I went over, introduced myself as I do at these events. I go around and introduce myself and make sure the vendors are good and the attendees and so forth. And I inquired as to what it was that he was doing. So he shared who he was. He shared that he was a radio host. He had a podcast. He was there broadcasting for the event, and asked me if I would come on as a guest to share the reason I was there and the purpose and what it was we were looking to accomplish on that particular day. So I did. And when I finished, he said to me, have you ever considered radio? Have you ever considered working in radio or having your own radio show? And I said, well, it's funny you ask, because years prior to that, I was a program director for the YMCA. And the summer program was our cash cow. So come January, February of every year, I would do the gamut of the morning shows in the area. I was in the Baltimore area at the time, so I would do the gamut of the radio morning shows in the Baltimore area, as well as the morning television shows, the good morning shows in the Baltimore area. And every time I walked out of the studio, I would always be asked the same question, have you ever thought of radio? Have you ever thought of television? But at the time, I was an Army wife, so I said, yeah, it's a great thought, but, I'm following this man all over the country. So at this particular time, season of my life, that's not something that is possible. We began to have this conversation, and we began to talk a little bit more. He told me a little bit more about his platform. And I went home, and for the next few months or so, because I do tend to overthink things, I prayed about it. I prayed about having a radio show, what that would look like, what I needed to do to prepare for that show. I had many conversations with him, so I was clear on what his expectations were. And there were a couple of things that he shared with me. To this day, I implement in everything that I do. He said to me, what I do in my platform is not a hobby. He said, it's my passion. It's what I do. So I'm here for the long haul. If you wish to be a part of my network, just know that this is not a hobby. This is something that I am passionate about, and I am interested in media, and I want to move forward and see where it takes me. So with that mindset, I knew I had to come to the table prepared. I had to come to the table with a concept of a show. I had to come to the table with what day, night, time can I commit from now to eternity, if need be, to broadcast, because once I build an audience, they expect to hear Paula G at a certain time, at a certain evening. And it just so happened, it just hit me, Jason, it just so happened my show was on air for 6 or 7 years, Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m.
Oh, wow.
That just hit me. That just hit me. So he was very clear about what his expectations were. So for the next several months, I prepared in regard to what the name of my show would be, what my platform would be, what type of guest I would have on the show, what day, what time, and I mapped out and ironed out all those things. And then once I did that, then I went ahead and went on air and was on air with him until his passing in 2020. That was Clark Garrison, as you mentioned in the bio of Survival Radio Network. And then during that time period, somewhere in that time period, I was asked to be a guest on Late Night with Jerry Royce Live. And I don't quite remember, Jerry might remember, but I don't quite remember how my name came across his platform, but I was a guest on his show, and we began to dialogue about co-hosting a show. I think the first show was the late night show. He was looking for a female late night co-host, and we co-hosted for a time period as well. But, you know, it took and it takes a lot of work of lining up the guests, doing your homework, and preparing for guests and preparing for the show, you know, each and every evening, as well as with television. It's the same, you know, with television, having to be prepared, doing your homework, committing to the day or time or hour, whatever it is that you decide to be on air. You know, some of the application is the same with radio and television. It's about the commitment. It's about the platform, your standards, your boundaries, because your audience, as you build your audience, you build a faithful audience. There are certain things that they will expect to see, certain things that they will expect to hear, because they're entrusting you with their viewing and their listening and their time. And I always say on my show, you know, time is precious. It's the one thing that we cannot get back. So for the audience to think it not robbery to spend their time listening to our shows, we want them to come away at the end of 30 minutes or an hour with something tangible that they can utilize moving forward in their lives. So that's kind of how we got started with the radio and television platforms, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey since. And I have to give Jerry a shout out because we are in September. We will be on the heels of our 5th year, going into our 6th year of my journey with Paula G. So we got to give him a shout out because that was his vision and that was his baby, and it has just grown, you know, on leaps and bounds since then, and the variety of platforms that we are on, and growing, you know, even more. We, as of last week, we just picked up another a platform as well, which we will be debuting next month. So it's been a wonderful journey.
And Paula, now let me back up for a second, because folks, Paula G just gave a master class in the media. Now, Paula, here's what I just gathered from what you just said. This is why journey is so powerful. She said passion over hobby. So many people that want to be influencers, you know, because Paula, you've seen, speaking of journey, so you've seen, you know, how radio has changed, and now, you know, we have podcasts, and then you've also seen how TV has changed, and, you know, you've got the big major networks. Now you got streaming services, and then you got independent stations and channels popping up. And yet some of the principles you shared, it transcends whatever environment you're on. So you talked about, hey, this is not a hobby. Like it's not about just, I like TV, or, you know, because a lot of those things people don't realize, Paula, it could be kind of selfishly motivated. Not that you shouldn't have goals or aspirations, but when something is a passion and it's not a hobby, it doesn't, though you do work and work hard, it doesn't feel like work because it's your passion. And so I love how you said that about being in the space. Then it was so key when you had an opportunity. You seized an opportunity. I know you didn't fully know what was going on, but you still seized the opportunity, Paula, when you got asked, because you could have said no, right? So passion over hobby. seize the opportunity. You talked a lot about preparation.
Yeah.
My journey with Paula G just doesn't happen. I mean, there's preparation gets into the consistency and the booking of guests and doing your homework and building an audience and understanding how the audience moves. So, Paula, this was a masterclass.
And it started when the opportunity was presented to me. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, years ago, because now when I'm having this conversation with Clark back in 2015, which was like 20 years past the time when the suggestion and the opportunity was first presented to me, but I was not able to take it on at that time. So when it was presented to me again, I said, Lord, it was a prayer. It was an answer to a prayer. I said, Lord, this is the direction I desire to go in. If it be according to your will, open the doors of opportunity. Give me the discernment to recognize the open door and the wisdom to know what to do once I cross the threshold. And that was the prayer that I prayed at the top of all this, because, I remember the first night I went on air, I was so nervous, Jason. I wrote every single thing out that I was going to say.
I can identify when I first started. I can identify.
Verbatim. I mean, and every second, not every second, but every minute was accounted for. I'm going to do this for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, and then the music is going to play. Everything. And I look back now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I stressed myself out so much, back in the early days. But it's growth. You learn, as you grow and you learn and practice. I can't stress that enough. And it's as you said, Jason, at the top of the show, people just think, you jump on there and you start talking, or if it's with, television, radio, voiceover, whatever it is that you're doing, that you just get up there and you start doing it. But it takes practice. It takes preparation, research, practice, continuing to study and continuing to be coached and continuing to train so that you can hone your craft and continue to hone your craft, because we are in an ever-changing world. Technology is changing, as we speak, and the platforms that we're using today may be obsolete tomorrow, and we'll have to learn, how to use those platforms. But if we don't see it coming, if we don't do our research and stay on top of things, and we don't see it coming, and don't anticipate it coming, when it comes, we won't be ready for it, and we might be left behind, as they say. So, the practice, and preparation. Absolutely.
That is so good, Paula. You even touched on full circle moments. I feel like, especially as business owners or people, called to the mountain of media or even the arts, is a lot of people, they want the platform. But what was unique about your prayer, Paula, is you said, Lord, I desire this moment, but I ask you for the wisdom to be able to handle it. And I feel like that's critical, Paula, as far as the faith journey is. People pray for the outcome, but we can forget that I need to be equipped for that moment, for the journey. So can you just talk about that a little bit? And it's funny because you even built a brand around it, Lady Wisdom. So can you just speak to other aspiring artists about, you may want something, but the role that wisdom plays in being able to handle it. Because, as they say, Paula, sometimes you can bite off more than you can chew.
Exactly. And, one of the things that I encourage the individuals who are pursuing whatever field it may be is you have to prepare for what you pray for. You must prepare for what you pray for. If you're praying to have a radio show or a television show or voiceover artists such as myself, there's preparation. I keep going back to the practice and the research and getting training and coaching and so forth. So when we're looking at these different ventures, when we're looking at these different areas that we desire to go in, the first thing we have to do is be prayerful about it. And then from there, when we see that, God has confirmed that this is the direction that we are to go in, this is the direction that He's going to open doors, and He's going to equip us with what we need to walk through those doors, because He has something for us to do once we walk through those doors, to minister, to bless, to utilize the gifts and the talents that He has placed inside of us. We have to be prepared for that. And with me being an overthinker, because I've always been an overthinker, but there are advantages to being an overthinker, because, I would always think of these what if situations. I would look at other radio hosts and television hosts and podcasters and look at all of these different situations. I remember sitting down with a couple of veteran radio personalities here in the Atlanta area and terrestrial radio, and just picking their brain about different scenarios in the industry, the types of things that I can expect, pros and cons, and then taking that information and thinking about, should this come up or should that come up? How will I handle that situation? How will I handle it with grace and with poise, those particular situations? Having boundaries, knowing what it is that you will discuss on your platform or you won't discuss on your platform. Because one of the things that was shared with me early on was, before you come out the gate, you have to know who it is that you are, what it is that you stand for and believe in, and stand firm on that and have confidence in that. So as you're moving forward, there may be things that may come in your path that may look and sound good, but is it in alignment with your vision? Is it in alignment with what God has ordained you to do? Is it in alignment with those boundaries that you set at the beginning of your journey? So before you even come out of the gate, you've got to know, you have to have a clear vision of I call it your I am. What is your I am? And you have to be clear on what your I am is. I remember back in the early days of radio, there were some that were upset because there were certain guests that I did not have on my platform. I didn't have them on my platform, not that there was anything wrong with the guests. It was not in alignment with the boundaries that I had set in the beginning of my journey. I was prayerful about it, and with the particular platforms that they had, I wasn't willing to step outside of those boundaries. Sometimes you can, because sometimes you can look at a guest or a topic or subject and say, you know what, that's an area I had not really thought of, but perhaps we can explore it, and I can see where it could fit under the boundaries, or the umbrella, I should say. Maybe not boundaries is a good word, but umbrella of topics or that I want to discuss, or values that I have. But, if it doesn't fit, you've got to stay true to who you are and stay true to your I am.
See, Paula, you're just bringing all types of golden gems tonight. V squared, vision and values. Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Paula, because a lot of times, at least when I observe out in the business world, we think like, like that vision purpose stuff is like just for the corporate folks. And I love how you're incorporating it in this space, because you're like, hey, I'm not going to allow certain people or certain topics to be on my show because it doesn't line up with my vision or values. And that's not how I'm going to serve my audience. you know, because then silently, you know, Paula, then people are going, oh, wow, they had so-and-so on the show, or, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then there's an inconsistent experience, which you talked about consistency earlier, and vision and values play a role in the consistency of the show, in addition to, as they say, same time, same channel.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, for me, I'm very protective of my audience and my guests. You know, I want my audience to always want my audiences to come away with something that they can tangibly utilize the next day when they wake up on their journey. At least they have the choice to utilize it. And then I always want my guests to feel comfortable, you know, when we're having a conversation about whatever their journey is. I don't want them to ever feel that they're going to be blindsided by a question, or, you know, that shock value. You know how there's some platforms, and that's their platform. You know, it's that whole, you know, shock value. I'm going to pull the rug out from under the guest. You know, and that is not my journey. And I don't know if you remember or not, but, you know, I always tell my guests, you know, if we approach a subject or a topic or something that you choose not to talk about, I would always tell my guests, well, Paula, this is my cue that they could tell me, Paula, that's a conversation for another day. You know, we kind of chuckle. Yes. And then we move on, because for me, for my platform, when you come on my show, my goal is for you to share your journey, to share your testimony, and to be comfortable and to feel comfortable in a safe environment, and, you know, in doing that.
Amen to that, Paula. And that's huge, because you just described a scenario where, because you're focused on serving the audience, but one of the ways to serve the audience is to serve your guest that you have on the show. So you are being a servant leader on your own platform by simultaneously serving the guest and serving the audience. I just got all of that out of what you just said, Paula. That is why she's Lady Wisdom, folks. It's just a row of gems just falling out from her voice. My goodness. Well, Paula, this is a perfect segue, because you talked about vision, values, praying, making sure you better be prepared what you're praying for, and ask God for wisdom, and he'll give it to you. We see that in the book of James. And so, Paula, you have interviewed, some high profile guests. How do you maintain not being starstruck? You got people like Wendell Pierce, Dr. Dennis Kimbro, former NFL running back Willis McGahee, Awkwafina, Golden Glove. Some people, they hear those names and like, oh my God, they're coming on the show. But I have watched you for a long time, and you're just so graceful. And some of these people, Paul, let's be honest, some of these people I just named, they would get a oh my God from a lot of people if they saw them out on the street. So can you just talk about, give us some wisdom on, hey, you know what? You may have these types of people on your platform, but how do you prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for that?
You know, as you were sharing, I was thinking of, you know, some others that I've interviewed as well. Bobby Jones, Dr. Bobby Jones,
Dr. Bobby.
Yes, Robert Koolbell from Kool and the Gang, Shirley Murdoch. And so to answer your question, you know, what I've realized is all of these people are just that, people. Because in the process of preparing for the interviews, for some of them, they've been, as the theme of my show, juggling this journey called life while we're walking in the gifts and talents that God has given us. Some of them, in the process of preparing for the radio show or the television show, are juggling something going on in their lives that I was able to relate to. You know, we're preparing, you know, this particular well-known person for the show, but they just flew back from taking care of their mother, who, you know, they had to maybe place in assisted living or something of that nature, or someone else whose child was sick, and, you know, they're juggling that, or they themselves are dealing with some personal challenge. And I realized these individuals are larger than life, but at the end of the day, they're just people. You know, we all put our pants on the same way. You know, they've got to, you know, eat a couple times a day just like I do. You know, they have these challenges just like I do. And then the process of preparing, I always would have conversations. We would just talk, not necessarily about the show, but just talk. And I always felt some sort of connection because there was something that I could relate to or connect to in that conversation. So for me, it took the level of starstruckness down. But I have to admit, though, Dr. Bobby Jones, that one almost stumped me.
Yeah, I was good. As you were saying that, I was like, Paula, I don't know. That's a legend.
That
right
one.
there.
that one, and you know, my birthday a few years ago, I was on the still co-hosting a late night show with Jerry, and he surprised me that evening with Dr. Bobby Jones, who came on and sang "Happy Birthday" to me. So I still brag about that today, that he sang "Happy Birthday," and then I had to interview him after that.
Oh, jeez. Oh my
talk
goodness.
About composure and talk about, you know, testing your professional skills and your, you know, your that right there was a test indeed.
My goodness. Wow.
That was a test.
Definite test. Hard to recover from something like
exactly. But, you know, really just looking at them from the lens of these are real people with incredible gifts and incredible talent that has brought them to this particular place in their lives. And then also, you know, learning about their backstories and, you know, some of the challenges that they have gone through as well. And, you know, a lot of relatable scenarios in their backstories, you know, really help to put me in a position where I could focus, you know, to conduct myself as a radio and television professional, interviewing these big names, you know.
I love that, Paula. Just they're people. My coach used to tell me something similar to what you just said. Hey, they put their pants on just like you do. You know, before we get to all the athleticism and what the team's record is, remember my coach, Jason, remember, they came out the locker room just like you did. They had to practice just like you did.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great application of what you gave us, Paul, is yes, these are some extremely accomplished and talented women and men that but they're a person, they're a human, and they have a story, and we're all bound together by the stories from our lives. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, Paula G, we've got radio, we've got TV. You're also a voiceover talent.
Yes.
Talk to us about what that experience is like and how that's a little bit different from being on a radio or TV.
You know, the voice, I have this tag, it's just the voice that matters. A voice talent creates the image in the listener's mind.
That's good.
Or creates the feeling. And I remember early in my radio career being told that radio is the theater of the mind. So how your voice comes across sets the mood for the listener. And what, you know, how you're saying what you're saying, and the inflection and the emotion and the feeling and all of those things. So part of my past was as a counselor, I was a school counselor for, almost 20 years. But before that, I've always had the ability to listen to to people and to be able to be an encouragement to them, to be able to be of a comfort to them. So I believe that the voice evolved out of having that gift of being a comfort to people, and then just applying, applying the voice to that. And, I remember, Jason, when I was a little girl, that I did not like my voice as a little girl, because my voice was, of the lower register. So my voice is described, if you were to describe it based on, like your sections of the choir, it would be an alto or contralto voice, which is a lower register. And I can recall I used to answer the phone when I had to answer the phone, because my father was an electrical engineer. He worked for General Electric. So when I answered the phone, I had to answer the phone in a formal manner. So I would say, Grady residence. And I remember one time the gentleman on the other end of the phone said, "Son, can I talk to your dad?" And I went and I got my father, and then I went in my room and I just burst into tears because, this man thought I was a boy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But now that I'm at the point that I'm at, and how my voice has comforted and how my voice has soothed, and having this voice in the lower register has become a blessing for me. So, I utilize it for, I've done a few commercials. I've done a few videos for business persons who have instructional videos on their websites. I've done some of those. I've done some drops. I've done some work for Positive Power and for some organizations in the Atlanta area. I've been the voice of God at some events as well. But even with that comes practice, taking care of the voice, practicing, just like an athlete, you warm up your body to prepare to perform whatever the sport is. It's the same thing with the voice, doing some vocal warm-ups and some tongue twisters and things of that nature, watching what you eat or don't eat before recording, because all of those things matter, and all of those things make a difference when you sit in front of a microphone and you're recording, and the person listening, you want them to hear the true and pure timbre of your voice. One of the areas that I use my voice, because I believe in, we're utilizing our gifts and talents, and we have our businesses, and we're utilizing our businesses to support us, but also I believe in using our gifts and talents to help others. And one of the things that I've been proud of over the last almost 10 years is I've been a volunteer reader, audiobook recorder, and broadcaster for the Georgia Radio Reading Service right here in the Atlanta area, which is a radio station for the blind and visually impaired.
Oh, wow.
And that has just been such a blessing, because when we have the gatherings and the listeners come to the gatherings, if it's a Christmas party or what have you, you're so humbled, because these individuals are non-sighted, but they hear you speaking, and that's Paula. She does Paula Ferguson. She does the AARP, or they'll make their way over to you, and they're feeling your face or your hand, or they reach out to shake your hand. So that's very important to me. In addition to having clients and to utilize, my voice under my company and my business, to also utilize it to help and serve others as well. Because when it comes to the voice for the radio, for the blind and visually impaired, a lot of them, that is the only means by which they get their entertainment or their news or what have you, by listening to audiobooks or listening to the radio station, the Georgia Radio Reading Service station. So it's a blessing to be able to do that.
Wow, that's awesome. Paula G, using our gifts and our talents, not just to generate revenue, but also to serve for those who may be needy, or if they have a impaired or have a condition. Yeah. That's huge. Paula, you are multi-talented. God has given you so many abilities: radio, TV, voiceover, and now writing. You're an author and you're a contributor to Flourish Digital Magazine. So we gave shout out to Jerry Royce, the Batman, shout out to Flourish Digital Magazine. But Paula, I mean, I feel like you did everything else. You might as well tie a bow on it with writing. So then, I mean, how was it for you, Paula? Was it kind of like, okay, well, radio, check, TV, check, voiceover, check. Did somebody just say, well, Paula, you might as well write? I mean, how was that?
That's kind of how it happened. That's kind of how it happened, because the Paula of today is not the Paula of yesterday. There's nothing wrong with the Paula of yesterday, but I truly have transformed. When I say I've transformed my life, I truly have transformed my life. And it was so interesting because today I attended the retirement party of one of the former teachers I used to work with. And as I was standing there and I was talking with her, and she was asking me, what are you doing now? And I was telling her, well, I'm doing radio and television and modeling and voiceover and all these things. And she said, you have made a total shift. You have made a total shift in your life. And what you're doing now in no way mirrors what you did before, because I was an educator for almost 20 years. I was a program director with the YMCA. I was a military spouse for almost 23 years, and very proud of those years. But, a military environment is, it's very rigid and, pretty black and white. There's not a whole lot, outside of the box. So in the process of making that transition, once I felt that I was on the other side, going from Paula to Paula G Voice, Lady Wisdom, once I felt I was comfortably on the other side, I felt it was important to share that journey in a book so others could see that they may be in a season of their lives, they may be in a point of their lives where they feel stuck or they feel stagnant, and they feel that, as the scripture says, that fire shut up in your bones. Mm-hmm. And, there's things inside of them that they want to do that are totally different from the life that they are leading presently, but they don't know how to make that transition, or perhaps they can't see that transformation. They can't see that transformation. I thought it was important to share that and to be, as we say, transparent as possible as to sharing who I was and the process of becoming who I am today. Mm.
Wow.
So therein lies my first book, My Journey. It's entitled My Journey to Lady Wisdom After Midnight.
Ah, okay.
Yes, My Journey to Lady Wisdom After Midnight, just sharing the journey from who I was to who I am today and the challenges that I faced along the way. And at the end of each chapter of the book, I have indicated a lesson learned. As a lesson of this particular chapter, this is a lesson that I've learned from this chapter. This is the lesson that I've learned from this chapter, in hopes of helping those who are reading it, to see that they too can make changes in your life. A friend of mine, has this phrase that you can be whatever you want to be. You just have to show up and be that.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, you just have to show up and be that.
Show up and be. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lady Wisdom.
Yes. I'm such a believer of writing the vision, having a vision, write the vision, make it plain, writing down a plan. What is it that you desire to do? And I'll give you, if I can, Jason, I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah, sure.
So, I've always, in my younger years, I did a little bit, when I say little, like little bit of modeling. And that is something that I've always wanted to explore further, something I've always wanted to do further. So in the process of being prayerful about this, I said, where do I see myself? What is it that I desire to see one day? I desire to see myself in print as a model, on a billboard. That'd be really cool as a model, to see myself on a billboard. If you're driving 75 North here in Atlanta, around the Georgia Tech area, heading north, past the Varsity, past the Olympic Tower, there is a digital billboard. Now, I don't want anybody getting in an accident, so you might want to pull over somewhere. There is a digital billboard of myself and my print model partner I think it's for cancer research or something of that nature. So point being, I saw what it was that I desired to do. And then I said, what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to be able to model? And mapping out those steps to that journey. I've got to, first of all, get myself together, physically, emotionally, all those things. Look for an agent or agents. Audition for, these different modeling jobs. Again, having boundaries, and continuing to work it until I reached the goal that I wanted to reach, until the goal manifested. It's all about the vision. You have the vision, and then you ask yourself, what does it take for me to manifest that vision? And then you begin that journey step by step. You set small goals for yourself. Each day you can do something toward that vision where you can manifest that goal. And the manifestation may come a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years, whatever it is. It will come if you continue on that journey, if you don't give up. If you give up 100%, you're never going to make it. But if you continue, you take one step every day. There's a quote that I have upstairs: to let your vision and your dreams drive your day, not your feelings. Because there's a whole lot of mornings I wake up, I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like working out. But I have to keep my vision. I have to get up and go because I have to keep my vision in front of me and not be dictated by my feelings, because my feelings can be all over the place some days.
Wow, that's huge.
You got to keep it. You have to keep whatever it is that you desire to do. You have to keep it in front of you. I put up almost every room of my house, whatever the vision is and the manifestation of that. I put it up, so I have to see it every day. So when things are happening, your daily life, you're juggling that journey called life, and things happen, you get distracted. Perhaps there's a death in the family, or there's some sort of big family event, or there's some family circumstance, whatever it may be an illness, you're going to get distracted. But if you have that visual on a daily basis, yes, you have to take care of those things, because that's part of that juggling that journey called life. You have to take care of those things, but you have the constant reminder that I am on this journey toward the manifestation of the vision and the dream that I have. Yes, there are detours along the way. There are going to be obstacles, all of that stuff. But your task is to keep going and keep moving. And as long as you're living and breathing, get up each and every day and do something to take you a step, a half step, even if it's a quarter step, closer to the manifestation of what it is that you desire. And you are an example of that as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
Paul, I don't even know if you realize this. What you just did, just that snippet and giving us that example, that was like a mini audio book. that she just gave. I was like, oh my gosh, it just comes out of her. Like the last minute and a half, you could just take that, go edit it, and go put it up on Audible. That's how powerful that was.
I'll keep that in mind.
Indeed. Hey, repurpose.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's a good one. Repurposing. Oh my gosh, yes. That's a good one. That's a real good one. Is because and thinking about too and even what you're doing, the platform that you're on, your content, your material is timeless. It's timeless. People will be listening, months and years from now and can still utilize and apply what it is that you're sharing. So you go ahead with your best self.
Amen. I received that, Paula, as we get ready to close. Because, Paula, I could talk to you for another 3. We could have our own. We could have a conference just with the two of us.
Yes. That's the danger of 2 radio hosts having a conversation.
That's true. But, Paul, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. As we get ready to close, where can people keep up with all the wonderful work you're doing? You've got the Paula G Show. You've got books. You've got, just voiceover. You're a contributor to Flourish Digital Magazine. So just between social media, websites, where can people find you? And folks, I'm telling you, you're listening to this, and you need to find her. You do. If you didn't know, now you know. You need to find her. Tonight, you're like, oh, man, that was good. Imagine listening every day or every week. I don't think you understand how good it is. So, Paula, where can people find you?
Well, firstly, they can find me on the weekendchannel.tv, right? Positive Power Family, Jerry Voice Live shouts out on the Weekend Channel, My Journey with Paula G. I actually have my own channel on there. So thank you so much, Jerry Voice Live, a.k.a. Batman.
Sir.
My Journey with Paula G. And we're so happy to be on the threshold of our 6th year coming in September of My Journey. But I try to make it easy for people. Paula G as in George, Paula G Voice across all social media platforms, Facebook, IG, LinkedIn. My website is paulagvoice.com. I also have a group page, which I invite the audience to become a part of. It's my mindset journey with Lady Wisdom, where I'm a strong advocate of that conversation in between your ears. I always close my show with the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one that takes place in between your ears. What are you speaking to yourself? Is God a part of that conversation? And are you listening to his still small voice? Because we go through so many things in life, and sometimes we have to sit and peel back the layers and break down those bad memories and speak new memories over ourselves, new conversations, new narratives, so we can move forward and manifest those visions that we have for ourselves. So Paula G Voice across the board. My journey to Lady Wisdom After Midnight can be found on Amazon. And Paula G Voice across the board. Facebook, IG, LinkedIn, paulagvoice.com is my website.
And folks, don't you worry. We'll have all of Paula's information in the show notes. So don't you worry. You will be able to find her in the show notes, all of her information. Paula, just thank you again so much for coming on the Fortified Life podcast. We will absolutely do this again before you go off doing Oprah things.
I receive it.
Well, folks, that's all we've got time for. We were blessed by Paula G, Lady Wisdom. You know how we leave things. She told you how she leaves things on her show. Here on the Fortified Life, you know how we leave things. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fortified Life podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out FortifiedLifePodcast.com for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortified, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business. Available on Amazon.
You're listening to Gary Live Worldwide Podcast.